Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bet.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Miscellaneous Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What do we got going on tonight, my man?
Jake Paul, not avoiding them allegations for fighting only geriatrics. Let's talk about it.
It came out very recently by Jake Paul himself, no less, that I guess during their fight, Mike Tyson was dealing with a little bit of Parkinson's. Now, this was a revelation to everybody. Obviously, we all knew that Mike Tyson was old, and based on his speech patterns, based on some of his movement, you can certainly make the assumption, but none of us really knew. The fact that this man went on to beat Mike Tyson, the fact that this man still thinks and promotes himself as some sort of good boxer or believes he's in the same league as some of the top tier boxers and so on, is really a testament to the hypocrisy and the egotism of influencers like Jake Paul. The fact that these people think they're anybody because they're taking advantage of geriatric old folk with Parkinson's disease is a little bit sad. Again, we all love Mike Tyson in his prime years. We can all say Mike Tyson was a beast. And the reason anybody tuned in, we all wanted to see some ray of hope. We all wanted to see that miracle happen, right? We all wanted to see, even if just for a second Jake Paul let his guard down, we wanted to see the old Mike Tyson. And let's be honest, it was all a put on. You know, it's funny because now the likes of, like, for example, Joe Rogan will be talking about that fight and they'll wink. Like, everybody in Hollywood knew, and to a certain degree everybody did, that this was just a fake fight so that they can get a money grab. And listen, I have no problem with the Mike Tyson because Mike Tyson's put in the work. Mike Tyson's put in decades and decades and decades into the sport. I have no problem with him getting a money grab. Someone like Jake Paul, I want to say should do better, but let's call it what it is. These people are the scammers of the new generation. The Ponzi schemes of old are gone, and now we got people like Jake Paul scamming the likes of everybody. It's just as bad as the Hawk Tool girl scamming with meme coin. It's just as bad as all these other people, the Elon Musk of the world. The like I said, Jake Paul is what's the other Paul? Logan Paul. It's just like the Logan Pauls of the world and so on and so forth. It's just like that. Listen, I have no wrong with being lied to. I watched WWE growing up as a young lad. I believe when I was a little boy that shit was real. Now I understand it's fake, and I have no problem with them doing their thing because I understand that it's not real. It is scripted. That being said, they sell this like it was a real fight. If you watch the promos between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and you saw some of the movement that Mike Tyson was putting in, you would think this was the Mike Tyson of maybe the 30s at best, when he was in his 30s. This is the Mike Tyson, maybe not in his prime, but just slightly over his prime. The man was doing crazy, phenomenal head movement. It looked like the old Mike Tyson, and that's what really drove a lot of people to think maybe he still got it. Maybe that man can still get it done. But what we saw on that day was a very hesitant Mike Tyson. Couldn't pull the trigger when Jake Paul was open. Couldn't really bring out that killer instinct in himself. And again, maybe it's just because he's old. Maybe it's just because he just didn't have the killer in him like he once did, or maybe it was all put on and a lot of people got scammed. And I'm glad to say I didn't pay a dime for it. Can't say the same for my homeboy, but I didn't pay a dime for the fight. Nonetheless, I did watch it, obviously, because I wanted to see that miracle happen. But it is what it is. Now, again, back to Jake Paul. It's sad that these people will really flex that as a win. Again, it was a shorter amount of rounds, even though it was a professional fight. It was shorter rounds on top of it being less rounds. All these stipulations, but yet this man carries himself like he just went 12 rounds with the legendary Mike Tyson, the 19-year-old that became the heavyweight champion of the world. He acts like he went toe-to-toe with that man. He carries himself around like he went toe-to-toe with that man. This man is out here calling out real boxers like Canelo Alvarez and people like Canelo Alvarez and Turkey Al Sheikh and all the other people. Terence Crawford are all sitting there laughing at the man because the reality of it is Jake Paul is a fraud. He's a scammer. And listen, as a person, I have no problem with Jake Paul as a person. I understand that this man's got to make his money at the end of the day. I understand that this man's got a business to run, and he has put on for some of the female fighters. So I can't be mad at that aspect. But the person that we all know is lying through his teeth, trying to convince you that this is what he was meant to do, that's a Jake Paul that I don't like. What do you think about that, my man?
You know, is going to seem a little bit of an exaggeration, but this actually mirrors something that happened back in the late 80s. And let me explain something right here. The fact that Jake Paul has been riding off of so many legends in the fight game that are pretty much analogous to boxing, but not actually in the world of boxing. And now that he had somebody in the world of boxing under his belt, but really far removed from their time, and they're still trying to ride it around as some kind of legacy, makes me mad, but it also makes me disappointed on how far boxing as a sport, at least in the public eye, is kind of fallen from grace, so to speak. Let me explain. Back in the late 80s, I want to say, Muhammad Ali actually was diagnosed with Parkinson's himself. Muhammad Ali didn't exactly want to go down without a fight, however, quite literally. And Muhammad Ali actually insisted on fighting a couple more times, even after he was diagnosed. Parkinson's be damned. Parkinson's be damned. At the time, there wasn't any reputable boxer that wanted to take him on because they felt like they were basically taking on a tiger that had been declawed, so to speak. Come in Larry Holmes. Now, Larry Holmes, again, admitted after the fact. After the fight had already been done, there had been a post-fight interview, and they asked his feelings regarding the matter. And he said he felt extremely remorseful about it. And keep in mind, the man said that he was sorry multiple times, but he also acknowledged Muhammad Ali is just that stubborn of a person. Even if you told him that he was going to die tomorrow, he still wanted to fight. Like, you were going to stop Muhammad Ali from not fighting. So he said, if it wasn't going to be me, it was going to be somebody else. But the fact of the matter is, I still had to take that bullet. And that was Larry Holmes' feelings on the matter. Now, that aside, Larry Holmes still basically became a pariah in boxing just for that fight alone. Just for that fight alone. People hated this man's guts because how dare he take down Muhammad Ali, even if he had Parkinson's. That man shouldn't have done that. Come into the future. Jake Paul basically admitted that he took down a 52-year-old man with Parkinson's that was a legend in the boxing world, and damn near nobody says anything about that. They're more so disappointed because, yeah, Jake Paul didn't really fight anybody reputable, but nobody's labeling him a pariah. Nobody's labeling him a pariah or a leech on the combat world because he is exploiting all of these names. Granted, I get it. Most of them are getting a decent payout from this, even more so than some of the UFC fighters that he actually fought, getting a bigger payout than when they were in the UFC. That in and of itself is kind of hairy, but the fact that he's leeching off of all these names just to put proverbial notches under his belt to boost his ego, and he is leeching off of every single one of these people's names, and nobody is batting an eye about that. Nobody's decrying him. Nobody is calling him a fraud. I mean, they're calling him a fraud, but they're kind of doing it under their breath. And they're saying, yeah, it's Jake Paul stuff. It is what it is. He's going to do what he's going to do. But the fact that it's happening so blatantly and so publicly, and nobody is telling him, dude, shut the hell up. You're a fraud. And he's still crying about trying to get all these contracts with big name fighters and trying to get that Canelo payday. And nobody is batting an eye about this. Oh, it's just Jake Paul things. It is what it is. No. The same way that they labeled Larry Holmes a pariah back in the world, or back in the day, they should have done that to Jake Paul. But guess what? Nothing's really happening. It's one of those things.
Yeah, listen, man. If you look at everyone who Jake Paul's fought, first guy he fought an NBA former NBA player. Then he fought a few retired UFC fighters. Then he fought Tommy Fury. And against the first boxer that was in his age range, around his weight, he got outboxed. He lost. Tommy Fury wasn't some phenomenal boxer, by the way. I think he had like 9 fights at that time, 8 fights at the time against bums. So he couldn't even beat a his level type fighter. He couldn't beat someone who I personally wouldn't even call Tommy Fury a prospect at this point in his career. He couldn't beat a startup boxer. And you mean to tell me that you're really gonna try and take some sort of acclaim, some fame from beating Mike Tyson? Come on, bro. Come on. Have some self-respect. And see, that's the problem. Is a lot of people don't have any self-respect. Anything for the money. You know, a lot of times when people used to say that, oh, these people sold their soul to get where they are, I used to think that they meant like that they actually literally sold their soul to like the devil or something like that. That's not, man. They sold their self-respect. They're willing to forego self-respect just to make a little bit more money, just to make a little bit more. And I think that's why a lot of people are poor, man. I think that's why a lot of us don't have the money that these dudes have. Because I'm not lying, man. I have some self-respect. More self-respect than Jake Paul. But listen, some people will come on here and say, yeah, but he's got money. Great. He doesn't have respect. Who cares? No one respects Jake Paul. Nobody that's an actual like a fighter enthusiast that watches the UFC, that watches MMA, that watches boxing, so on and so forth. Nobody takes him seriously, and that's gonna be the doom that I know is gonna just stick in the craw of a Jake Paul, because he so desperately wants to be respected, and he's not gonna be, because again, the first actual boxer that he took on, he didn't beat. He took a L, and he's never gonna get that back. He's going to go on fighting retired UFC fighters, retired MMA fighters. He's never going to fight anyone with some serious potential of beating him, because the facade must go on. The facade must go on. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.